We're circling round these three questions about the laws of Nazir, of Nazirut, about vows, Nadarim, about dedications to the temple, and about relationships between men and women. And so that's actually four threads, not three threads. But we're moving between these threads. And as we close the fourth chapter and we begin the fifth chapter, which we're going to do today, we'll see how these all come together. Now, we've learned in the sixth Mishnah of the fourth chapter that the question as to whether a father or a son can impose Nazirut on, a father or a mother can impose Nazirut on their son. And the Mishnah learns, and this is a halacha Moshe Sinai. There's no basis for it in text. It's just a verbal tradition. The Mishnah learns that a father can do this, but a mother cannot. And it never explains why. Never explains why. So now in the closing Mishnah of the fourth chapter, we're going to go back to this idea, but with an absolutely similar concept. Ha'ish megalech al nazirut aviv. A man can shave for his father's nazirut. Ve'ein ha'isha megalachet al nazirut aviha. But a woman can't shave for her father's nazirut. Ketzad, how does this work? And the Mishnah is obviously going to ask, Ketzad, how does it work? Because what we've learned is so far, or it seems completely incomprehensible. Ha'ish megalech al nazirut aviv. How can someone shave for their father's nazirut? And remember, by the way, when we talk about shaving in the Mishnah of nazirut, we're talking about not just shaving, but bringing all the sacrifices that go with the end of the term of a Nazir. So when you finish being a Nazir, you go to the Beit Mikdash with your three sacrifices and with the loaves of bread. You bring the sacrifices, you shave there, your hair is burnt on the altar with the sacrifices. And then then at that point you've completed your term. So when the Mishnah talks about shaving, it's sort of shorthand for this whole process. So this man is going to go through this process for his father's Nazirut. And we don't quite understand what this means. So the Mishnah asks Ketzad, and it's going to explain. Mishaya aviv Nazir. Someone's father was a Nazir. V'hifrish ma'ot stumim li Nazirut umeit. Li Nazirut to umeit. So someone's father had been a Nazir, and he'd set aside some unspecified money. The Mishnah keeps on talking about ma'ot stumim. It's money which he's sort of set aside, so it is specified in that sense, but it's not specified for particular sacrifices. He hasn't specified this much for the sin offering, and this for the burnt offering, and this for the peace offering. So he set aside some money, and then what happens? Umate, and he dies. We learned actually about someone who became a Nazir and actually didn't die until he reached the end of his term. It seems as if the Nazirut was protective, but in this case, it wasn't. So he died in the middle of his term. So what does his son do? Amar, his son says, Hareni Nazir al manat she egalach al ma'ot abba. So his son says, behold, I am a Nazir. So he's going to serve out the term of Nazir on condition that I shave with father's money. She'egalech al ma'ot abba. In other words, he doesn't have to spend money to bring the sacrifices. And I guess he's fulfilling his father's period of Nazirut. So maybe there's something of each. Maybe there's a respect for his father, but also there's an economics issue here as well. Amar Rabbi Yossi, Hare elu yipludi deva. Rabbi Yossi says this doesn't work. By the way, the halacha is not going to go like Rabbi Yossi, but Rabbi Yossi is going to object. He says this doesn't work in any way. Who is the person that can shave for his father's Nazirut? So Rabbi Yossi has got a completely different answer to the problem, although He still aren't. I mean, it's a perfectly good answer, and it answers our problem, but it's a slightly different way of looking at it. Who is the one? Shehu Magaleach al Nazirut Aviv. Mishaya hu ve'aviv Nazirim. So someone who was a Nazir together with his father. So they did this together. They said, oh yeah, we're going to be Nazirim. They're going to do that. They did this together. And then his father set aside money that was unspecified for his Nazirut, and he died. This one can shave for his father's Nazirut. So it's as if they both started off as Nazirim. And the Mishnah, we're focusing we're circling around the question of kind of how you use money or animals which have been set aside for the temple. And this is exactly where this is the last Mishnah of the 4th chapter, but the Mishnah actually continues straight on with this subject in the 5th chapter, with the general principle about something which is set aside for the temple. Beit Shammai omrim hekdesh tayot hekdesh. Beit Shammai say something hekdesh, in other words, something consecrated, ta'iot, something consecrated in error is still hekdesh. So we're sort of investigating the question as to, what's the status of something which is consecrated if let's say the events that were foreseen don't work out. A bit like if, for example, someone thinks he's going to finish his Nazirut and he doesn't because he dies. What's going to happen? So Beit Shammai, by the way, Beit Shammai are normally pretty strict on anything to do with the temple. So Beit Shammai say, oh, no, it might be an error, but it still belongs to the temple. Beit Hillel omrim no hekdesh. And Beit Hillel say it's not hekdesh. And the Mishnah then asks Kate Sud, how? So you can see the pattern of this Mishnah is following exactly the pattern of the previous Mishnah at the end of chapter 4. Even though the subject matter is not, and the subject matter is related. And there are 2 of these Mishnayot, actually, which start with Beit Shammai, Beit Hillel, and then we go back to the question of Nazirut. So, if you like, we're making a little interlude here with a question of Hekdesh. So we ask Kate Sud, how does it work? Amar, he said, Shor shachor sheyetzei mi beiti rishon harehu hekdesh. The black bull that leaves my house first shall be hekdesh, shall be consecrated. So I swear the black bull that leaves my house first is going to be consecrated. And what happens? Ve'atzalavan, a white one comes out. So the first one that comes out is not black. Well, what are we going to do? He said first, but he's also said black. What's the situation? Beit Shammai omrem hekdesh. Beit Shammai say, no, it's consecrated. You can't do anything about it. Ubeit Hillel omrem no hekdesh. Beit Hillel say, no, it's not hekdesh. You have to fulfill every single condition. And we're now, having taken the example of a bull, which is, if you like, a specific animal, we're now going to look at money, which is essentially fungible. I might mention, by the way, on the way, that Beit Shammai learned this idea that Beit Shammai learned this idea that if you like, the mistaken hekdesh, the mistaken consecration still works from a verse in Vayikra. So the Talmud learns it out from Vayikra on behalf of Beit Shammai. Lo yechlifenu velo yamir oto. You shall not alter it or change it. This is something which is dedicated, a good for a bad or a bad for a good. And if you do change it, both are holy. So in other words, the implication in Vayikra is that if you change your mind, both objects, both the first one and the second one, are holy. So that's Beit Shammai. But the halacha goes with Beit Hillel. And let's look now at money, which is fungible. So it's less specific. Dinar zahav sheyalev yadi rishon harehu hekdesh. So the gold dinar that comes into my hand first shall be consecrated. It's gold and it's first. The gold dinar that comes first shall be hekdesh. What happens? Allah shel kesef, and a silver dinar comes into his hand. So it is first, but it's silver. So Beit Shammai going to say the same thing. Beit Shammai omrim hekdesh, Beit Hillel omrim eino hekdesh. Beit Shammai say it's hekdesh. Beit Hillel, they stick to their position. It's not hekdesh. What about a question of value? What about a question of value? Chavit shel yain she'talev yadi rishona. The cask of wine that comes into my hand first shall be hekdesh. Harehu hekdesh. Ve'ala shel shemen. And what happens? He gets a cask of oil. It's not clear, by the way, whether the wine is more valuable from the oil, and the commentators disagree. So if the wine's more valuable, then what's come into his hand is a down value. If the oil is more valuable, what's come into his hand is something more valuable. But either way, Beit Shammai omrim hekdesh. Beit Shammai omrim, look, Beit Shammai omrim hekdesh. Beit Shammai say, look, it's hekdesh, it's consecrated. You can't do anything about it. Uveit Hillel omrim eino hekdesh. It's not hekdesh. They stick to their line. Something which is dedicated by accident. Something which is dedicated without intention. And of course, this is, by the way, is generally the theme through Nazir. If you, and by the way, through Nadarim, if you swear you're going to be a Nazir by accident, or if you make a neder by accident, then that does not, that vow does not take, does not have any force.